Everyone, what's up? Luke here. Thank you all for tuning in today again for some more Pod Limit Omaha content here on YouTube. Before we're going to jump right into the action, thanks for being so active after last video. The responses has been great and I decided to put in another play and explain here for all of you. Today we are mixing it up and we're playing some fast forward here on Party Poker. Definitely a different experience, and you will all see what we're talking about in this episode. It's gonna be a live play and explain, so I'm just gonna record and play at the same time, so you will see my thought process, and we're gonna learn more about like how to adjust correctly playing these micro stakes games. I hear a lot of questions about playing these stakes, not necessarily maybe 2 cent, 5 cent, but it could also be like 10 cent, 25 cent, or 25 cent, 50 cent. And you will definitely get some ideas after this session how to adjust correctly here. So let's jump right into it. I have two tables open. So we got this one here and we got another one. Today we will see just one table as that will be better for shooting the video, as the wide angle for two tables doesn't fit greatly into my window here. So I have only one table open for now. Opening King 8, 6, 5. And whenever there's an interesting action popping up, I will open it up. So here there's not much happening. So let's focus on this one. On Party Poker, but also on some other sites, of course. These days there's the option to show your stack in big blinds. So you can also put it in dollars. But I really like the big blind opportunity. It's very easy to get a quick understanding of the SPR, how deep we are, how deep is your opponent, and it will definitely make life much easier. Flop here went check, check. We're going to check a lot on king high boards, queen high boards, unless our opponent is very wide, which at this point we don't know yet. So we're just going to assume he plays decent ranges in a sense, and therefore we're betting not on the flop, but we will bet turn, still two pair. River, we have a straight actually. And I think I'm gonna check and go for the check raise. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. My opponent didn't bluff here with like a 7 and a missed straight roll. He's definitely at the bottom of his range there. So he could potentially go for it. Not necessarily saying this combination is the way to bluff, but it's hard to win when he checks. Here we're flopping a straight. We unblock all the pairs, but we don't have great runouts. It's also a board we're not betting too often. Yes, we will have some bets here, but we're very often going for a check. And I will also start off with a check at this point. If we bet and get called, like there are diamonds, there are board pairing cards. There are a lot of runouts basically where we don't connect too well. On the flop, we can go either way. I'm going to decide for a check call. And then check, raise the turn. If he bets, of course. And he does bet. Often like these weak made hands, they will play passively on the first street, because they first of all don't crush if the money would go in. And secondly, there are still a lot of transitions. We're up against a set and we take it down. So I think that's one of the tips for low stakes players, micro stakes players. Try to think a little bit about your range more than your hand specifically. And that could be maybe even the focus of today. Like a lot of players at lower stakes, they not think too much about what hands they are playing altogether when they're in their range, and also what hands their opponent will have. They look at the value of their hand and base their decision on that. And although that's important, like we definitely need to think a lot about range versus range interaction with the board texture. And the Queen 9-8 board we just saw is a good example of a situation where, although we have a strong hand, our range will do a lot of checking there, and therefore we also need to put in some strong hands into your checking range. Otherwise, that part of your range, that part of the action when you check is very weak, and your opponent can just bet anything there and just make you fold. So, and then these made hands, some will get check raised, some will get check called. And that often depends on playability. It often depends on how likely is it that you will dominate your opponent, if you will get the money in. And a combination that we just had is a decent candidate to check call. You're opening ace, queen, 4-3. Although we don't have an ace high suit, the hand has some connection. We want to open around 50% of the hands in our range here. And this is then a good combination, like ace, queen, ace, king hands on the button are being raised super, super often. On the turn, although we have the ace of clubs and a gutter, against the half pot bet sizing, I think we want to check, like, we have better hands in our flop check back range and then turn continuing range there that play better on rivers, that have a little bit more equity, a little bit more outs. So keep those things in mind. This one is a marginal open. You can go for it. If you play against a button that is very wide and aggressive, then you should probably end up folding here. Like, I don't know him, so I will end up raising. But keep that in mind that at low stakes, whenever you open raise, like, fold equity pre-flop is very important because the rake is high. So whenever you have the option to take down the pot pre-flop, then you want to aggressively go for it. But whenever you have opponents who will continue wide, then you want to be careful there. Like here, I think we can go either way. Betting here would be fine, I would say. We can also check and decide based on the action of these players. Like now I'm going to check call. Because we have a 4, we have some equity. We could also... we could even check raise, actually. I think I'm going for a check raise here. Like, my hand doesn't play too great as a check call. Yes, you will have some 8x here. And on the turn, like, we do pick up an open-ender. We don't have a club in our hand. Still bet again. We take it down. I was considering to check call or check and then decide, but I will give away some free cards there. We did pick up equity. And whenever you're bluffing in pot limit Omaha, like, picking up equity, if you continue to bluff on turns and rivers, is extremely important. So that can be a good sort of rule of thumb for all of you to simplify your bluffing process a little bit, to not only go based on reads or whatsoever, but try to get in some overall overarching rules, basically. And this is definitely a decent one. Check back flop, turn. I will also check. And then we're going to bet on the river because we're at the bottom of our range. And if we check, like, we're never winning here. We will also have some straights still in our range. We will get called here sometimes, which is fine. We will see some folds here. So that's definitely a fine enough hand to bluff. On the river, like, often think about, like, how high are you in your range? Do you have any showed? If you check there, is there a chance you win? And if there's no chance at all for winning, then think about how likely it is, given the action so far, that your bluff is going to work. And here, if your opponent checks 3 times, then you have a decent chance to take it down, of course. Like here, Would there be reason to call? I think so. At least we're going for it. You can mix it up here. Generally speaking, we just can get it in. But occasionally sprinkling in some calls here is fine. He checks. He could have, I don't know, he could have king. But does that change anything? I don't think so. And in the meantime, on another table, we flop top set, which we will get into in a second. He folds, actually. Here we flop top set, but we also block the 4, which isn't great. At the same time, we also block some straight draws, so I don't mind checking here, just because it's hard to get value. Our opponent will check fold a lot. Like, one of the things at low stakes, micro stakes, is that your opponents are heavily overfolding. And at this point, we unblock the 5, we unblock clubs. So I think I'm going to raise it up. Trying to get some additional value from 5x, of course. Yeah, so check folds at low stakes, micro stakes is like a big thing. So whenever you are in this position, your opponent checks, you can bluff like super wide here. And now, at this point, we're going to pot it. And I think he did call, right? Yep. So he calls me down with a flush. Nice. Here we check back the flop. We have top pair. We got some showdown value, but we don't play too great if we build a pot. We don't play too great if we get check raised. But when my opponent checks the turn, like with 2 pair, we have enough made hand value to start betting. Now the river is interesting. We don't block an 10, we don't block an 8, we don't block a 5. With any of those, I would definitely value bet here. And now, generally as a rule of thumb, sort of, like having any of these blockers is the way to go. And I think I'm going to stick to that. Even though I feel I have the best hand. You also want to think, like, how likely is it that you're going to get called by weaker? Like, I don't know. That's fine. So yeah, value betting these making these lighter value bets, you generally want to focus on holding decent blockers to your opponent's better made hands, of course. Like some straights there, for example. This hand, I'm actually not sure. I think it's a fold. I think folding is fine. If you open, it's probably a low EV one. If you play against the button that's wide, then you definitely want to fold. Yeah, so let me know what you think about this fast forward format. Like, I know many players enjoy playing this. Like here, the rainbow version, I'm just going to fold. I know many players like to play these fast forward and zoom formats, so therefore it's interesting to play around there and also have a session here. This one, we're a little bit deeper, which makes me want to 3-bet out of position a little bit tighter. I think this as a check, as a call is totally fine. We still have like 4 gaps, like we have a gap between the ace and the queen, a gap between the queen and the 10, and 2 gaps there. So the hand definitely looks prettier than it really is. This is a fold. Like in the small blind, you want to be careful, especially at these micro stakes. The rake is high, of course. And I think that's one of the biggest traps that people miss out on when they play low stakes, micro stakes in general, is not think critically enough about like where they're playing, what rakeback deals do they have, etc. And on the turn, you can bet small, you can check. Do have a gutter, but it's hard to get called by weaker also, right? Like, is a 4 gonna call again if you bet? Nah, probably not. And on the river, I'm gonna check. Opening here. In the meantime here, we open raised a little bit loose with only the king high suit. I see bet the flop with my pocket pair. I would say we can either bet or maybe check raise bluff this combination. Like with the pair, like check calling doesn't play too great. And now against another bet, like he will have some 9x here, but we don't have spades, which is definitely unfortunate. I'm not sure if I'm willing to fold yet. Yeah, he did. Had a hand. Like this is definitely, like if you see players calling these hands at micro stakes, low stakes, then that's not a hand you want to cold call here. Too often at least. Sometimes it's fine. But I see players overvaluing these single suited rundowns quite a bit. And you want to be careful there. You're going to get dominated a lot. Rake is high, so especially passive actions should be proceed carefully. So cold calling, facing 3 bets, like you want to be quite tight there in general. Here I'm going to fold with like 3 wheel cards. This one to open raise. We flop bottom pair, a gutter. We get 1 diamond. I'm checking. If I would have like a queen of diamonds, a jack of diamonds, even the 6 of diamonds would be much better. And although we have 2 pair now, value betting is on the lighter end, so I'm going to check. And we open aces in the meantime on the other table. And we flop an overpair and a gutter. No backdoor flush draw on the board texture that my opponent in the big blind will definitely, he will have definitely can connect here for sure. My hand, if I bet and get called, like there are not too many turns that I'm happy to continuously bet on. So I don't mind a check there, to be honest. I will call a bet now. Like if I would have a backdoor flush draw, I would backdoor nut flush draw for sure. I would bet, and a lower backdoor flush draw. Sometimes not. He bets again. Like quite a bit of draws missed. Like all the straight draws basically missed. But we do have the ace of clubs. We do have a 10 also, blocking some of the missed straight draws. We have a 3. I don't know. We do call and he ends up with a missed wrap there. And think that's fine from his side. Here we will check call. A small c-bet. And on the river, like he checks back the turn, so it's unlikely that he has Jack X or better. We block the straights. We lose against kings. We lose against ace X. So I would say this is probably one of the first hands that we want to start bluffing here. And again, we might get called here a couple of times, but overall, when you think through the hand, the bluff definitely makes quite a bit of sense there. In the meantime, here we open raise, get called. We flop top pair the second, not flush draw. We don't have a straight draw or anything, but I think my hand is fine enough to bet. On the turn, we can go either way. I think I'm going to bet again. I would say he's going to check raise quite a bit of nut flush draws on the flop. And on the river, we're betting. And in the meantime, here we check call the flop. My opponent did call here, by the way, with a straight and a diamond blocker. Yeah, that's okay. Definitely one of the candidates we can call down with there. Here we check call flop, turn goes check, check. Do we have a value bet on the river? Like we have top two pair. I think this is the region where it's gonna start, sort of. Top two pair better. I don't know. And he has top set, apparently. That's fine. This hand will be a fold. We don't want to cold call too much in the small blind, and simplifying it to a fold 3-bet strategy only is, I would say, is fine at these stakes. Like, don't bother too much with cold calling there. Picking up queen, queen, 3-3. Against a small bet, obviously, you can cold call a little bit more. But this one is a 3-bet for me. This is a board where we don't see bet very much. Like our range will have a lot of high cards, high pairs. So we don't connect too strongly there. So we're going to check a lot. And this one, we're totally missing here. So start off with a check. If he bets, it's very likely we end up check folding. And on the turn, it's a blank. We do have a heart. We do have the threes. But like, does our hand benefit much from betting? I don't know. There are definitely a lot of draws out there that we can fold out some, so we can deny some equity there. And against this sizing, I mean, although it seems weird, I think we want to fold. So here we get check raise on the flop after ISO raising, or after calling a c-bet, or after calling pre-flop. And we do have a redraw. We unblock all the pairs. So I think I'm gonna come over the top here. That's a nice turn. We will pot now. SPR is around 1. Very likely that he also has 7-8 here because people don't check raise bluff too much here. He has like a flush draw and a top pair and a gutter on the flop. So that's not a hand you want to check raise. You want to have better blockers to mate hands. So a 7 or an 8. And if not, then you want to have like strong rep combinations. This one is much more in between, like you do with the gutter also. And here, I have a little bit of a time issue here. So let's just check again. Flopping top pair and a rep. We're gonna bet it. We do have a spade. Could also be a hand to check back for sure. And on the turn, gonna barrel again. Clear open raise here, like big blind players at low stakes, small stakes, they overfold quite a bit there. So keep that in mind. If you have an opportunity to steal, then that's definitely something that's more possible at these lower stakes because people just don't defend enough, basically. So you can go quite wide here, especially if you have some information on your opponent, then you do want to attack the big blind. And we take that one down again. Play a couple of more hands here. Again, let me know what you guys think of this Zoom format or fast forward, whatever you want to call it. I obviously enjoy this playing also a lot. And yeah, if you have any questions about a hand or whatsoever, then feel free to let me know. Here we flopped a nut, flush draw, and a gutter, and I'm gonna start betting. And here, like again, a situation where we will check a lot with our range. The 7. I'm gonna bet it now. And I'm also gonna sit out very soon here. River is a deuce. Like, is there some value in betting? I don't know. I don't think so. Let's see what he has. Yeah, people bet. Like, people call pretty wide here. Like, he still has a gutter. Which is one of the advantages of betting smaller there, of course, right? Like, people will continue wider. This is a fold. And that's going to wrap it up, guys. As usual, let me know what you think. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. That would help me a lot, of course. And also subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of myself. Also check out some of the other more deeper analyses that I did here. I did some hand breakdowns, some reviews using solver work, and where we dive deeper into these pots. Also, if you are interested in getting in touch with other players of the Pot Limit Omaha community, other poker players, then feel free to join our Discord channel. I will put down the link below the video here. It's a great way to meet and interact with other people, talk poker strategy, talk live, share experiences that you have in poker. And that is eventually the way that poker will be even more fun. So guys, thank you very much. Have a great day. Hope to see you back here soon. with another episode.